Now, I will tell you, this is the positive part. Like I said, this thing is evolving. Sure. There are more and more people who have put a lot of effort, not only on the quantitative, and I talk about that. There's a lot of people that focus only on the math. If you're analytical, if you're nerdy like we are, it's easy to get caught up in if this number will solve all my life things. Well, fortunately, there's been people who have now walked the walk, and they have started recognizing, hey, we need to focus on the qualitative stuff, just like you were talking about. And we even have some stats on this. If you just focus on retirement, if you look into who are retirees, are they happy, are they doing this as the best version of themselves, it is sad that almost a third, or 28% of retirees, are more depressed. And it's not the finances. It's not the finances that are driving that. That is showing that there's an indicator that we need to focus on something just beyond the numbers.
So if that's the case, if it's not just mathematics, if it's not just dollars, what do happy retirees need? Well, again, there have been tons of research done on this, and we actually know one of the things that retirees need in order to have a successful, and we're going to call it retirement for the moment, but to have a successful period of life here, besides money, one is just simply maintaining healthy relationships and understand they still have to build relationships even to and through this season of life.
Yeah, and one of the things we talk about is when we're working with wealth management clients, a lot of us great builders of wealth, the savers and accumulators, already have a hard time going from builder to consumer, because that's just so alter what we've done our entire working life. The same thing happens when you enter retirement. And that's why I do want to give a shout out. I love that when we were putting this all together, one of the the two resources that we really leaned on was Fritz over at Retirement Manifesto. Yep. He walked the walk. He has the wisdom. He did the experience himself. And then, of course, Wes Moss. Yep. He wrote the book, What the Happiest Retirees Know. We've done some content with Wes. And it is amazing that if you think about maintaining and building relationships, some of the data that came out of the research of those two was 3.6 close friends is kind of an indicator of a successful retirement.
That's
you
what
have
happy
relationships.
Retires. And what happens so often is these builders and accumulators, all of their friends, all of their social network, all of their social structure is through their employment. It's the people that they work next to and alongside. Well, all of a sudden, when employment changes, you don't recognize, so too does your social structure. And so if you've not accounted for that, what you can find is that this season, this station of life, can be very lonely and very isolating.
Yeah, well, I think marriages will go through a transition too. Yeah. I mean, you never know what the reality of a joke is or how much of that joke, because all jokes, to make them funny, they have to have a touch of truth to them so it connects with us as humans. But how often do you hear spouses talk about, man, I don't know what I'm going to do when they're home retired all day with me?
Yeah.
And so that is one of those things, and that's why if you look in the stats, that 35% of divorces in 2020 were couples age 55 plus.
It's not people at the beginning of their life stage. It's not people at the beginning of their journey. These are folks that have been together for a while, entering into a new station of life.
And what about single people, Bo? What does the research show on that?
Yeah, so it's really, really interesting that if you look at retirees, it is not uncommon that single retirees are 4.5 times more likely to be unhappy than married retirees. Now, again, that's not prescriptive. Yeah. It's just looking at the numbers. And so it would suggest that folks who understand relationships and how to maintain and build those in this station and season of life have a higher probability of it being a happy time for them, not one of the 28% or 1/3 of retirees that are actually depressed.
Yeah, I look at these as reality check stats. I don't want this to be what happens to you. It's just, but I've known from several of our friends that have been part of the FIRE movement. It is unique that when you leave the workforce, a lot of those relationships go away. So you do need to lean into heavily, who are your friend sets? How firm is your relationship with your significant other? Do y'all have activities? Do you have things that you do together? Because all those things, and that's probably a great transition to talk about, and this is something I know when we had Wes on the show, we talked a lot about. What are your hobbies? What are the purpose or the fun things you do outside of work?
Again, in the research that was done, they found that happy retirees have 3.6 core pursuits, something that they are working for or working towards. Unhappy retirees only have 1.9. So they have one thing, maybe two things to focus on, but outside of those things, there's not a lot of stuff occupying them. Well, when you retire or when you enter into this station of life, you're going to have more time than you've likely had for the last 10, 20, 30 years. You need to understand, okay, what am I going to fill that time with? One of the things that we've seen for early retirees, as well as just normal retirees that do not enter into it successfully, is they finally hit their last day and they wake up the next day and they sleep in for the next week and they wake up and they look around and say, okay, now what? Now what am I going to do? Oh my goodness, how am I going to fill my days? I did not recognize that every day was going to feel like Saturday. I don't like this. If you can figure that out before you enter this season, there's a really high probability you're going to be a much happier retiree.
Well, I think this is from, once again, conversations we've had, and I love that the stats support this, is that a lot of people, you especially you get a group of people together, and it's one of the first 3 to 4 questions is, what do you do?
What do you do for a living? Yep.
And I think that it is weird, because I already said that a lot of your work relationships fall off. It's probably weird if you're surrounded, you're the same age as your peers, but you're younger and you're in a different financial situation and you've chosen to go a different path. What is your purpose? What's your identity? And I think that's something that's hard. And that's why when we looked into the data, it showed that 97% of retirees who are happy have a strong sense of purpose.
And I think they figured out the abundance
part. They know what the happy. They've actually made it to that abundance level. It's not just the freedom of they have enough money. They actually know who they are, what they value, and what gives them purpose in the morning. When they wake up, they actually know what they're put on this earth to do. That's something I think a lot of people, you got to get beyond the math of the situation and find that abundance.
And then the last thing, and this is what we think the studies have found also, here's what happy retirees need. They need to have healthy habits. Happy retirees regularly did low-cost exercises like walking, swimming, biking, hiking, and they remained active with volunteering, which would be like purposeful work, or socializing, which would be like relational work. They found ways to stay active. When they asked unhappy retirees, hey, how do you spend your days? What are the things that you do? They said they had passive habits, watching TV, staying at home, not going out, not interacting. So if you want to prepare for this season and station of life, make sure that you're not just paying attention to the dollars and cents, but also to your health and maintaining a healthy lifestyle.